All right, let's talk about bebop in this tutorial. It's Paul Toby from jazzmental.com. A lot of people are commenting on my performances either on YouTube or Facebook, and they're basically saying, teach me some of those sweet bebop lines. So that's what we're gonna do in this video. There are four main and essential elements to bebop. The first one is called chord tones. If you don't know what a chord tone is, it is essentially 1, 3, 5, and 7. And for the purposes of learning these bebop techniques, we're going to be focusing just on the simple chord progression over autumn leaves. It is 2, 5, 1 of B flat, and then a 2, 5, 1 of G minor. Pretty simple. A chord tone for the first chord of C minor is 1, 3, 5, and 7 of C minor. 1, 3, 5, 7, and then F7, and then B flat major. So remember, chord tones, 1, 3, 5, and 7. Sometimes people put in the ninth, but for the purposes of today, we're just going to be talking about 1, 3, 5, and 7. When you play bebop lines, those chord tones typically fall on the beat. So let's play a little bit by counting off the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Okay, so the idea is to keep each of the chord tones on the beat. Now, it doesn't always work out that way. And the number 2 element of bebop is when you're playing lines, start with using passing notes. Passing notes essentially fill in the blanks between when you would typically land on a chord tone and when it doesn't land on a chord tone. So for example, let's say you're playing a C Dorian scale. And then you go to F7, this 6th or the 13th is not a chord tone. So how would you land on a chord tone like say the 5th? And that is by using passing notes. So you can do chromatic passing notes between them. So like this. There we used B natural as our passing note. Okay? That's how to get to chord tones using chromatic passing notes. The other way that you can reach a chord tone is by using a bebop scale. So for example, the bebop scale of C minor is this. Now inherently, it contains already 8 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So then it automatically evens out and ends up on a chord tone. And if you start your scale on a different note, for example, on E flat, sometimes you don't need the passing notes. Let's go to F up here like this. So because the distance between those two notes is a ninth, we don't need a passing note. All right, let's play a little bit just trying to use passing notes. So there we're going to the 7th. The next element of bebop that I want to introduce you to is what we call enclosures. Enclosures are basically under, over, and back to the note, or over, under, and back to the note. So for example, if our chord tones of C minor are 1, 3, 5, and 7, we can go over, under to the chord tone. Let's start with C. And typically the lower note tends to be a minor second. Let's do it with E flat. Let's do it with G and B flat. So you can see always we're sticking with the scale with the upper note, but the lower note is a half tone or a chromatic note. Now, you could go under, then over, and back to the note, but it's still a chromatic note below the destination note. And that's a really good one because that one can appear in many places. Right at the beginning of a line. Okay? So that one is infinitely useful. It's either under, then over to the destination note, or over, then under. Okay, that's a really good one. So that's a 2-note enclosure. Let's take a look at a 3-note enclosure. And this would be under, 2 overs, and to the destination note. So under, and then 2 overs. Now, if you go under first, it's kind of like you've got this, it's not the greatest bebop line. But if you reverse that like this, do 2 overs, then an under, it works really, really well. So think about that one. And then the final one I wanted to show you is a 4-note enclosure. A 4-note enclosure works like this. You've got 1 under, 2 overs, and then an under, and then back to the destination note. So under, 2 overs, and then back under to the destination note. Okay, that one is really useful. The other thing you can do with that one is you can actually play 16th notes. So if you're doing something like this, you can play them really fast. Okay, so 4-note enclosures. Now, you've got to play around a lot with this and practice them because they don't necessarily fall under the fingers that easy. So enclosures, try to remember that there's either 2 notes or 3 notes or 4 notes, and those are heading all to the destination chord tones. And the last one, number 4, that I wanted to share with you is patterns. Now, there are typical bebop language patterns. For example, 3, 5, 7, and 9 back to 13 and 5, or 6 and 5. That's our bebop line. Bebop. Now, what you can do with that pattern is you can reverse it and start with your 3rd at the top and play the exact same thing. So if it were the original one, just play the E flat up here. That one is a very typical bebop language thing. So we've got 4 things: chord tones, passing notes, enclosures, and patterns. The patterns typically are the most important because they kind of spell the chord. So while a lot of people just play lines, with enclosures and passing notes, playing the actual chord tones as a pattern works really well with that. So let's start off with a line, and let's play the pattern. Line, and then line, pattern, pattern. You get it? So those patterns are really useful in and amongst all of the other bebop things. All right, let me play a little bit of Autumn Leaves slowly and just kind of talk you through it as I'm doing it. So let's start off with a line with a passing note, with our language pattern, and then passing notes, passing note, pattern, and then line. Let's do chromatic line, enclosure. That was a little bit of blues in there. Okay, you get the idea? It's about mixing all of those things up. So my suggestion is that you take a simple tune like Autumn Leaves, play through it slowly, and really think about hitting the chord tones on the beat and using all of those other elements to fit around that. Okay, I hope you got a lot out of that. If there's anything you want to add to what we talked about today, just write it in the comments below, especially if you think it's going to be useful to all of the others here on the Jazz Mental channel. If you have any questions, you can also put that in the comments as well. Before you go, just reach down, click the little thumbs up button, and if you want to subscribe here to the channel, hit the bell and we will notify you of all the upcoming videos that we're making. If you want to dive a little bit deeper into the bebop language, let me put a link to a video over here where I take you through the decoding of bebop from start to finish.